Hey everybody, this is my Quora answer to the question, what are some ugly truths about Turkey? My answer, many Turks work like slaves. They have really long hours in these little shops, 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. They have really low employee benefits. Many of them have, you know, no labor rights, little pay. And I think that they deserve better. There's many great things about Turkey. This question asked specifically about ugly truths, not pretty ones. Um, all right, so let's say a Turk is working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, that in 26 work days a month, then basically. So it's 260 hours worked every month. And compare that to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, which is normal in most places. Let's say 22 work days a month, or 176 hours worked in the West compared to 260 a month in Turkey. Okay, let's talk wages. The minimum monthly wage after taxes is, what is it, 2,020 lira, roughly. So that's actually a 26% increase from last year. If you can imagine what it was like before, it was after taxes. So what's a lira? Okay, 2020 lira for 260 hours of working. That's 7.77 lira an hour. Now the currency exchange is right now $1 equals 5.75 Turkish lira. So that basically breaks down to $1.39 an hour. And that's the reason why things are outrageously expensive compared to their income, because of these issues with the currency exchange and these other things I just talked about. Used cars, electronics, anything that's imported is too expensive. A pair of Nikes, the price is based on the dollar. So by the time you add the import tax and the exchange rate, that pair of shoes can cost, it can take, a 60-hour work week of pay compared to less than 1 8-hour work day of pay for someone in the West who makes the local minimum wage. A laptop, a smartphone, that can cost, a month or two of wages. If you want an iPhone 8, that's like over 5,000 lira. If you want to talk about cars, and fuel prices are crazy. Many people, I think, don't understand how high used car prices are in Turkey compared to other countries. Back in 2016, 2017, I bought an old 2004 Honda Accord in Kuşadası for $10,000. At the time, it was 35,000 Turkish lira at that exchange rate back then. I sold the same car, that same year, same model, everything the same. I sold the same car 2 months earlier in America, in Virginia, for $2,500 or 8,750 lira compared to 35,000 lira in Turkey. So the same car cost 4 times as much in Turkey, not counting the exchange rate on top of that. You see where I'm saying? In Turkey, this old Honda Accord is 35,000 Turkish lira, and you know that can take a year for some people to make, working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, 3,290 hours of work for a car that, like I said, was worth maybe 2,500 bucks. If you Google some of the used car prices in America, you can do that through the Kelley Blue Book, and see how much used cars sell for in the States. Compare that to used cars selling in Turkey on sahibinden.com. So for the same old car, they actually have to fill it up with gas, with fuel, that's at prices that are the highest in the region. A liter of fuel, I think when I wrote this, was 7.10 Turkish lira. In Iran, right next door, their neighbor, it's like 0.29 lira. So I don't know why Turks are paying 24 times as much for fuel as their next door neighbor. I talked to some of my Turkish friends about this stuff, about the difference in car prices, for example, and he couldn't believe it. He was telling his friends, and he told me a little bit, is part of why this happens is that the government collects taxes, and it's different for the average person. It's difficult for the average person who lives there, though, the way that they collect the taxes. Um, Long story short, Turks are working, I think, 8 to 20 times harder, 8 to 20 times as many hours to buy the same car, the same shoes, or the same technology as the rest of the Western world. Why? These aren't luxury items. These are basic items, and I don't think it's fair. And it does make me kind of angry because, well, I think it's sad too that a lot of Turks don't realize how crazy it is to pay that much. A lot of them do, of course, but still nothing changes. My Turkish friends weren't exposed to what I would say is fair capitalism. They don't know what that looks like. So they think capitalism is horrible, it's bad. I don't like capitalism. It's not my policy. I didn't come up with it. But I don't think that it's horrible as a concept. But how it's done there in Turkey, yeah, it's bad. It's very bad. Okay, talking about solutions. Well, I'm not an economist, but I do think that there are solutions. I think they're complicated, but obviously you've got to revamp the economy to be fairer to the workers. You have got to pay people more money. You cannot have them working that many hours like slaves, really. You've got to improve work conditions, employee rights, stop charging so much for import products, and just improve your tax code. Get the lira back to a normal exchange rate. When I lived in Turkey, the exchange rate was $1 to 3.5 Turkish lira, and like 2 years later, it was almost $1 to 6 lira. In 2 years, there's no reason for that. And I know the U.S. needs improvement too. I'm not saying our economy is perfect because it's definitely not. But I lived in Turkey. There's a huge difference. Many people, they can't afford a car, so they just walk, or they take these crowded small dolmushes, buses, or they're riding on scooters. Even with the cars, a lot of times they convert them to run on LPG because they just can't afford the fuel itself. Okay, the last thing, I did write a few edits actually. Now, there's a lot of great things about Turkey. I love Turkey. This answer wasn't meant to be comprehensive. It's not supposed to cover every aspect of the country, but it did ask about ugly truths, so my answer was specific to that. And that's only my opinion based on my personal experience and observations. It's just one guy. I'm not on Quora to troll anybody. I don't have any specific agenda of why I write this stuff, other than that I just personally care about it. And I like answering questions on Quora. This one got really popular, so thank you for the upvotes for that. I don't get anything for those upvotes, but it does help to send me feedback that people kind of get what I'm trying to say here. I did have to disable comments. I didn't have to. I wanted to. There were some people on there that I just didn't have time for. I don't care if people disagree with me. That's fine. People should disagree respectfully. I don't mind that. But some people are just willfully ignorant, and obviously they just don't really care about the topic. And to me, it's an important topic. When I would see like these little kids, I'd see little boys sitting on the sidewalk all day next to a weight scale to try to make some lira when they're supposed to be in school. That's a problem. It's child abuse, in my opinion. But Turks, it's not a criticism, but they're so used to it. They walk right by. It's a little kid. If you see a little kid like that in the States, sitting on the sidewalk, next to a scale, when they're supposed to be in school, somebody's going to stop. People will stop. Somebody's going to call the police. It's child abuse. But I think that's how bad things are getting in Turkey, that it's just they see it and they keep going. Um, I don't think there's any excuse for it, um, for the economy to be that bad, and I don't think Turks should accept that. The country's got resources. Resources are there, but it's just not making its way down to people. Um, I know some things are cheap in Turkey. I live there. I know there's great produce. There's free education, apparently. Um, but if I write about all that stuff, then I'm not really talking about the question that was asked about ugly truths. So I did reply to some of the posts below, just to clarify my position on a few things. My intent is in no way to say anything bad about Turkish people, but just to share my observations as an outsider. Um, I think it helps to get an objective opinion like that, to help raise awareness. I mean, how can things improve if they're not discussed? But it has to be done respectfully, though. Come on. Edit 2 was, someone wrote that minimum wage is a liberal idea. Well, I can tell you, I'm not a liberal. Companies can't, whatever is the lowest amount that a person will work for. If you do that, people cannot survive, and then they won't have disposable income to buy things. Workers are also consumers. So of course you have to pay a decent living wage. The problem is not the wages. The problem is companies. Sometimes they're too greedy. Sometimes they have inefficient processes, and those cut into their profits. So they need to improve those processes and not take it out of the employees' wages. These are people running the business, and these people need to learn how to value their workers, invest in the training and education, try to pay more, listen to their employees, and just learn how to improve and grow their own business. Okay, I'm out, and peace, everybody. Thanks for listening.